Hello, this is a Bluthner style 4-gram piano, 150 centimetres long, 1937. It's just come into stock, so I'm assessing it to see what work we need to do on it. Now, cosmetically, we can see the keys are pretty perfect. There's just a slight chip in one of the middle ones, which we can make good, that one there. And there's also some that have been taken off and put back on again, if you look at this one here and that one there. But the lines are quite good, it's quite smooth there, so not too bad. Now the casework itself, it is mahogany, not faded particularly badly in any, or faded equally all round, but the case does need certainly tidying up. And we often repolish these pianos. What I'm going to probably do with this one though is to sell it less expensively, because it's a very good instrument. So you've got some very nice veneer on the sides here and on the top, so it could be repolished and be really exceptionally beautiful. Now, one very important factor when we're assessing whether to fully restore a piano or not is how tight the tuning pins are. In this case, they're very tight. The tone of the strings also is really very pleasant. I'm impressed very much. When I bought this piano, I was very impressed by the evenness of the tone. The hammers need a little bit of voicing, but generally good. And the bass, very full. It's only 150 centimetres long, but Bluthner so well designed this piano that it became very, very popular because it has a rich tone right the way through, and great singing tone in the treble. Away on this piano is that the hammers are bouncing around, they're not behaving properly, they can't be controlled at all, so that's to do with regulation of the piano. Now, Bluthners of this age have a standard roller action like any other piano. The older ones have a patent action. There's other videos about that, but this action stay here has been replaced. You can tell that very often they gave problems and they cracked. This one's certainly been replaced, and some of the that screw is different from the original. Here it doesn't have a screw at all. Very important to screw down the action stays. In this case, they do seem to be firm. Otherwise, the action doesn't perform properly. There's slight sideways play in the key here, which we need to take up, but generally not that much. Bluthners do wear so well anyway because they're so well made. I want to use this opportunity to talk a bit about regulation of pianos because it's so important, really. I see those two were the two we tried earlier, and we see they're not checking properly, they're not enough control, they're not going up high enough towards the string. I'll just show you that in a second, actually. See, if we play these two, and the other two I've regulated, as you can see, we'll look at that in a minute, but they don't reach the string when we let go. Push the key down as far as possible, and the key is actually 11 millimeters, so that's as it should. Just as a comparison, here's a fully restored Bluthner, and you can see the hammers to get as close as possible before they set off, and then this, you could actually possibly slightly refine this one as well, although it's fully restored. There's never an end to the amount of work you can do on a piano, but we're talking about the rollers. These really feel, the aftertouch feels almost identical to the other one. So in terms of the feel of the piano, we don't need to replace the rollers on the other one to get the good feel, though we would do it obviously if we do all this work on a piano, you do it automatically. Now these two that were bouncing, see that if I press the key right down, they're not reaching the string. Now, it could be that the key this isn't great enough, but this is 11 millimeters, so there's plenty of key dip, as it should be. But looking at the hammers, you see, they're not, even with pushing the key right down, they're not reaching the string. Now these ones that we've regulated, they reach the string and they have aftertouch, they come back again. We'll look at that in a second. So these hammers have been raised up here quite a lot, as you can see. They should be about 47 millimeters from the string. Grand pianos vary a bit between 47 millimeters and 45 millimeters. We set these at 47 millimeters. Now, played quietly, there's what we call aftertouch, so I'll show you what that means in a second. Aftertouch is when the jack pulls out. We watch this jack here, that's just pulling out. That's one that we haven't regulated, but it's not really that secure. You can see it's tending to double hit. So as we raise the keys up, that jack comes into play earlier. The key height is regulated here on these what we call capstans, and you can see the tool I put in there to turn it, Capstan Regulator, and slot that through the hole and then just turn it round clockwise, anti-clockwise, and then the hammer will go upwards. Having regulated the hammer height and decided what we want it to be, basically it's based on how the piano feels, then we can regulate this, which is called the set-off or let-off, and that determines how close you're going to get to the string before the hammer does let off. And last of all, we have the drop screw here, which determines how far the hammer's away from the string when all the work or everything's been done without it checking. It has a model of a grand action. This is a very quick video on this. I've got more about the difference between grand and uprights on another video. So first regulation is here. Well, first would be key dip. Actually, we want the key to go down 10 to 11 millimeters, that's the usual. And then once you decide how far the key's going down, you can regulate this, obviously how it's resting on here too. Plenty of regulation things to do, but these are the main ones I'm talking about now. This is the Capstan Regulator. You put this in here and turn it, bring it upwards, because the hammer over the years, it goes down, rests on the felt, and it shouldn't be resting on the felt. Then once we've done that, we can do the set off here. That's how far away from the string it'll actually set off, and we want to get it as close as possible. This model could be got a bit closer, so as close as you can, and yet it still feels secure. And then the drop screw is the last one. Where will the hammer end up when it drops? This is a long way away, it should be closer. Before it checks, it hasn't checked on here. If we hit it hard enough, it checks, and then the spring should bring it back up, and that's the drop screw, how high it will. It should be about a 16th. Well, the ideal will be a 16th from the string. The ideal set-off will be a 32nd from the string, well, as close as you can get, basically. Rarely can get that on a piano unless it's very finely regulated. So on these two that we've regulated, realistically 2 millimeters maybe from, or 1 millimeter. If you want to make sure it's going to definitely come back, so you don't want it to be double hitting, and don't want to be playing around like that one is, but you want it to make sure it's coming back, and then the drop screw holding it as close as possible for comfort, really. So I've done C and C sharp here. The sharp key dip should be slightly greater than the natural key dip because the sharps are shorter. I should say really that when we regulate the hammer height, first of all we may well change this. This is the roller which squashes over the years. So if you change that, it makes it bigger, and the hammer will come up obviously higher automatically. Do we change the rollers on this? It's a lot to do with the feel of the piano. Yes, it would slightly improve it by changing the rollers. If we're trying to make a piano less expensive, then changing the rollers isn't essential. They're going to stay like that for another 10, 15 years. Maybe after that you might want to change them. Certainly when we fully restore a piano, we'd automatically change the rollers. And the other factor I should have mentioned is how tight are the hinges here. And in this case, they're really good, actually. They're good tightness. They're not loose at all. If they're at all loose, then we want to replace the pin there, and we start thinking about whether we're going to change hammers, shanks and rollers. So there's a world of difference between just a regulation of this piano, sort of basic reconditioning, which will obviously keep the price a lot less, and then changing hammers, shanks, rollers, etc. And then that opens up a lot of other things we have to do, like weighing the keys off as well. And lastly, another very important factor, how worn are the hammers? They have had some wear here. Well, if we replace them, they do sound good. That's why I'm not going to replace these. They sound really good. They're nice and tight. The felt here is not too squashy. Yes, if we reface them, that will certainly make it sound different. But I want to show you something first. What I wanted to show you is that the tone here is actually very, very pleasant like it is. So if you're a restorer, that one certainly would be better refaced. That's why it's a bit thin sounding. Don't over reface if it already sounds good, because if it has a very nice tone, don't necessarily take all the grooves out of the strings. It's really a question of what tone you want at the end of the day. This one does sound so pleasant, but in soft playing, definitely, you can hear that's very thin sounding, and that's because it needs refacing. And that was just A here, and well, you can see the lines of the hammers there. Just put some shadow on it, pretty obvious. So refacing that hammer, you're going to have less hammer hitting the string. So it's really on soft playing, it's dampening the string at the moment because it's just hitting it, and not if you play it softly, it just sort of dampens So this does need refacing. When you reface, make sure you keep the shape. And by the way, refacing, it's not just a question of reshaping it and then leaving it. You've really got to make sure that they're very flat, so they all hit all three strings at once. And then afterwards you voice them. So it's quite a long job, refacing. It's not... it's something we'd have to do on this piano, especially around that area, which sounds weak. So if you're trying to minimize the work you're going to do, listen to the tone of the hammers here. Regulation really is so important. Whoever's been playing this piano has been playing it in a badly regulated state, so we can easily sort that out. It's all work, but that's the most essential work, and we talked about whether we do the rollers or not. Not quite so essential, but if we're fully restoring a piano, that automatically gets done. It's a choice to make. Hammer shanks and rollers, another choice to make. On this one, we can certainly quite confidently sell the piano without doing so much work on it, and therefore make it more economical. So that's an assessment of a Bluthner Style 4 grand, 150 centimetres long, so short grand piano, and in our opinion, one of the very best short grand pianos ever made. And this one has a beautiful, rich sound. But the regulation is very poor and needs sorting out. It's just not been regulated really for so long. But the treble sings beautifully, needs reshaping for soft playing around there. And for the length of the piano, so it has a very rich bass sound. So it doesn't need fully restoring. In this case, the casework also is acceptable, but a little bit the worse for wear. So I think this is a case where we could sell the piano less expensively rather than fully restoring it. It already sounds very beautiful. So regulation, several other things we'll be doing as well, I'm sure. We'll probably tidy up the casework a bit. Thank you very much for listening.